Growing Beyond Yourself by Leaving the Shadows Behind by Coach Stefan, Rudolph. Inner strength, that being the true strength and wisdom found within yourself, through yourself, for yourself, by yourself, is found by diving deep inside your unknown self. Unknown, you may ask? That being the new you within the old you. The new you that has been pushing to be heard, pushing to be seen, pushing to be born into a new world you are destined to create. In this world awaits your destiny, a life you will find that you were able to create, a life where you will see that the life before your awakening was part of your destiny in order to awake. Without what you felt you never did want to happen in your life, now happening in your life, your awakening into this new realm would have never occurred. The shadows of your past that give you memories also give you excuses. Excuses of blame, excuses of reasons why your life is the way it is and will remain the way it is forever, with these excuses still fueling you. Excuses versus acceptance. Excuses like these will continue to fuel your life till the end of your life arrives on that path. Acceptance for your inability to change the past, yet be grateful for it and let it teach us a learning experience, is a supplemental fuel additive called positivity. Positivity never follows excuses, only negativity. When can you last remember an excuse you made for failing and then felt good about making that excuse for yourself? Most likely never. Acceptance of your past path, our past situation, our past experiences, all these areas once connected with acceptance for that which has occurred and can now be changed, that will lead to the fuel of growth necessary to grow. Now you are here. The nowhere path has become the now here path. So now you are here with an awoken heart, ready to live with the fuel of awareness and fuel of gratitude. In a past life where outcomes you were not prepared for and or not accepting of that occurred, that being situations where you felt lost, you felt robbed, used, or even hurt by others, or by life itself, you simply continued to fuel yourself with blame, fuel yourself with excuses, and fuel yourself with reasons why you failed. Reasons why your life was the way it was and why it was never how you wanted it. Otherwise known as insanity. Never aware you are in it and therefore never able to break out of it. The acronym ACT. ACT stands for acceptance, consciousness, thankfulness. ACT. Yet with your new fuel of acceptance for the past and what has taught you in order to grow, gratitude begins to form in your present conscious of life, therefore slowly leading to true heartfelt thankfulness for that which you have become and where you are now in life. Being thankful for how the destiny of your past life led you to where you are now makes your future destiny of change and growth possible. Past acceptance, no matter how hard the journey, fuels current consciousness, thereby giving you continual gratitude and thankfulness for a prosperous future. The next step in this path of growth is knowing that in order to make your divine destiny come true, you must simply breathe deeper in times of stress and in times of hardship. Breathe deep in order to quiet the current mind chatter in you, a constant chatter that forces you not to listen to anything new or accept any chance of change in life. It's called the monkey mind chatter, as it's been termed many times. A chatter of excuses for those incidences and what goes on around you and how change is difficult because of it. Yes, change is hard and change is bad, but at the same time, change is necessary in order to grow. All these excuses become constant in order to keep change and growth at a distance. Yet through using breath as fuel of awareness, the constant new you continues to listen and continues to grow. This soft voice speaks to the unfound you. And the unfound you, that being the spirit, now begins to listen. Upon listening and upon acceptance for the unknown, that versus the ego needing the known, the more change and the more growth begin to take place. This unforeseen and untold occurrences of positivity in your life then begin to grow in repetition, happening more and more on a conscious level. Once combined with the fuel of acceptance, your path now sees unlimited growth. Focus on positivity. Focus on abundance. Focus on growth. Even in the hardest times, you now see that there is no wrong path. For with this positive mindset, there is simply a path not yet acknowledged as a necessary part of growth. Quote, listen to that voice within, speaking softly of change. This is the voice of your soul. Quiet at first, it is the voice of awareness, the voice of reason. Synchronize awareness. Institute constant change. Peace of mind will be heard. Peace in life will be seen. Peace and harmony will therefore be lived and be loved. You now point to yourself. In good and in bad, in right and in wrong, in positivity and in growth, in negativity and hardship, you point to yourself. You learn to continually point to yourself and ask, how can I grow? What can I learn from this? What did I do to attract this in my life? And ask yourself, how can attracting this in my life help me in a positive way grow in my future life? You then instinctively begin pointing to yourself over time and out of positive habit. Instead of pointing at others with excuses, you point at yourself in order to grow. Pointing with intent to lose blame and gain knowledge of personal growth through each learning experience that occurs in your life. You have then reached the breaking point of not being able to hear that soft voice. It is an inevitable listening skill now within you to hear that soft voice that speaks with wisdom of intent for peace. This is a new fuel that continues to unfold the unfound you, the untouched you, that being of which is the new you, that being the one who wanted out for so long and tried so hard to be heard, yet is now here to be heard for life. Now I am alive with prosperity to tell my story. This is what I found it takes to grow beyond yourself. Back in 2010, this voice began to come out of me, speaking softly at first, simply wanting to be heard. It came out with intent to help me find my true meaning, my true purpose, and my true self. I heard this voice for years, but sadly didn't listen. I simply created excuses when I heard it. I couldn't listen. Every time I heard it, the ego voice took over. That ego voice being the 10% of conscious mind that ruled my life and shut down that 90% of spirit that wanted so badly to speak up and be heard. The ego covered the spirit with excuses filled with dismissal. Yet no, don't listen to that voice that the ego spoke to me to block the spirit. I heard every time that spirit voice got louder and louder. These were seeds that were being planted, seeds of awareness. On this path of enlightenment, of which I began consciously walking in 2013, I found my passion for helping others. I found it by having to first help the most important person in my life survive through the worst times in his own life. Times of hardships that he faced from years of alcoholism that turned into a difficult battle daily as he entered sobriety. The daily battle where he had no other options besides fight and no longer flight, to survive sober or choose to die drunk. That is where his life was at. That is the death he was facing, or the life he was destined to live. The toughest times were upon him as his 25-year drinking career finally had caught up with him and his life spun out of control. I saw it happen from a distance. Once lost, he was never found. And only through escapism with alcohol was he able to face daily life, face it through his only outlets in life of alcohol, beer, and partying. He had spiraled out of control from a person who was able to tame and control his addiction for years to a man of lost strength. A so-called man now fighting to get out, to get back to where he was, to try to be who he wanted to be all over again. He was trying to be who he was while never being able to accept who he had now become in life. This was the dilemma. He had suddenly lost all strength of the man he used to be and was subsequently lost on his path he had to now call his life. He was at one time a man who had the $1 million home, the beautiful wife, the 6-figure job, the company car, everything. He had it all. Yet within a short 3-year period, he lost it all. During this short 3-year period, this person had become completely lost and needed desperate help in finding his true self, finding the man he wanted to be within. He was a young adult, not yet a man in life at this point. Not yet a man that was finding some way, some reason to constantly escape from life. Unable to stand up to the plate, unable to face hard times, he was unable to fight and unable to win. This being, not yet a man, was unable to live, unable to fight, yet truly he was unable to even die. He was lost in a blurred state of fog in his mind, a fog that shadowed out happiness and shallowed his mind with the inability to connect any longer to the fuel of the heart. Yet still, suicide was not an option. Instead, he chose a path of slow death through escapism from the bottle of poison meant to fuel a vehicle. He sipped each ounce of death slowly to enjoy the taste, yet quickly repeated to enjoy the escape. The meaningfully slow intent that the fuel of alcoholism had on his life with each drink could not be seen by him. His blurred state of reality gave him the impression of being the safe driver in his own life. Yet the reality was that the physical effects of alcohol day in and day out began to blur his vision of life and impact his common sense. The goal of death that this drink has on people was all too clear and all too near for him at this stage in his life. I personally could do nothing for him, as I was in a state of shock, a state of disbelief, and a true state of regret for what his life had become at this point. All the while, I continually watched him unconsciously sipping a slow, painful death fueled by alcohol. This person was a close friend, a true friend, yet a friend that would listen to me when he was sober, but forget me when he was drunk. He was a friend that would beg his pardon to be excused from life in order to drink and leave to escape this life daily, just waiting for it to end. Yet he would never admit these facts. Even in sobriety, it was hard for him to face reality. He would never admit these facts. No. Yet would he drink to forget these facts? Yes. I couldn't stand it. I also could not stand by and be a part of it any longer. All my power to hold him off alcohol was lost. All my power to be the true me I used to be and use my past strength to get him to stop drinking was also lost. And all the power I once had to accept, refresh, and rebuild from the mistakes he had made that impacted the lives around him slowly faded out of my life as well. I had no patience for a person, a so-called friend, who cared not for anyone else except him and his beer, him and his drink, him and his alcohol. That's what caring for life was for him at this point. How, when, and where exactly he left my life as a good friend, I never knew. The goneness and nothingness of my ability to tame the beast within him any further was all too surreal. This past power of strength and success that he had at one time in life, when he had it all, reminded me so much of me and my ability to succeed and my ability to control that which was difficult along the way. Yet when he lost it all, in a scary way, it too reminded me of me, how much it could be me if I wasn't careful in life. Yet in an insane way, he even looked like me. He acted like me. His decision-making patterns were so very similar to that of me, it scared me. Yet all along, I never thought it was possible that he was even remotely like me. Not until I awoke one day looking in the mirror and realized who this beast of burden truly was in my life. My life was a lie, filled with excuses. His life, that I never thought could be me, had now actually become me. This he, this other being, had taken over my life and become me. It was me, and this was my life. Upon this awakening, all the power to face myself in the mirror and realize that this person was me, that's when it took the life out of me. This person I turned into the mirror was a completely different person than who I was prior to my drinking life. This person was dead on the inside, living a life of escapism through alcohol, continually day in and day out. That was not me, but I had drank my way into a new me and never knew it until it was too late to change in hopes of being the same old me. That is the insanity that alcoholism played on my mind. Give up now. You'll never change. It's too late. Those are the voices I heard. Those are the excuses I lived. Those are the reasons I drank. Those common excuses became my new normality, as they are for many. I had lost everything. And by doing so, awakening spiritually at this moment was not an option. Up to this point, my world was run by my ego, an ego which was fueled off the material world. When this world came crashing down, I was so crushed that I became consumed on blaming others and the world around me, based on the life I was living that I could no longer face. Drinking was no longer an option. But blaming others for my past was the only option in my life of denial. And for me being on this path of true awakening, this is what it took for me to wake up. This is what it took for me to look up. And this is what it took for me to grow up in life. Growing beyond my old self, I found, was an act of fueling my new self with confidence, fueling my mind with power, passion, and strength. Knowing I could before I even did, that was the key. That is how I learned to fuel my new self in order to grow. Now still, my old self, my past self, that being the old ego, those parts did not want to die easy. Yet in pushing forward with acceptance of what I had to go through and grow through in times of hardship by myself, in order to find and be my true new self, that is how I grew into the new me. That is how I first started learning how to teach others to begin growing beyond yourself. A few years earlier, before sobriety, I found myself riding the bus one day at 40 years old. I realized I had lost everything. Just 7 years earlier, I was happily married, a homeowner with a well-paying corporate job, corporate car, and corporate lifestyle, living the American dream. This day and this awakening was humbling. What happened? I had to ask myself, my new sober self. Yet instead of the drunken monkey mind debating, the spiritual mind finally awoke and connected with the heart and took control. I then began accepting versus debating. I accepted my past for what it was, who I was, and the decisions I made. I also accepted the present for where I was at in life and became thankful for my overall life and well-being. Even with all the material items I had lost in life, that being everything, being dead broke, I found a way to be thankful. From there, the future grew brighter. Luckily and happily, I survived a very up and down path the last 7 years of a 25-year battle with my addiction to escapism. My path was beginning to clear in my first year of sobriety. Objectives and goals seemed to be coming into focus, but still, I simply could not get over what it was like being so successful one minute, then such a loser financially the next minute. I became regretful, depressful, and completely lost in my path of everyday events. Each day, I began to grow. Each day, I began to live. But each day was hard and difficult. Yet each day, I fueled my heart with thankfulness more and more as I began to live each day to the fullest. Every day, I lived with an attitude of gratitude. Leave the shadows behind, I quoted to myself and saw myself as I saw homeless on the streets and homeless in the bus stops and homeless everywhere I went. That law of attraction kept showing me who I could be if I drank again, who I could be if there were drugs in my life, who I would end up like if gambling was still in my life. If any form of escapism came back in my life, that is where I would be. That is what I taught myself. Learn from the past, live for today, work for the future. Now I was on a clear path. Now I could see the benefits of learning from my past and leaving it behind. Now I could and would continue to grow. Confidence became my fuel. Love became my energy. And my heart for helping others became my new life. Everywhere you go, the shadows of the past will follow. Never forget, they are formed from the light ahead. Coach Stefan, Rudolph, recoveredcoaching.com.